Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Andrew here from Rebels and Ropes Company. Nice to see you back here. Nice to be doing a video again. As you might notice, the Lowrider ST is back in the garage. I forget if I gave you guys an update on kind of all what's been going on with the ST. And so I'm gonna just kind of dive into that in this video. Talk about where the ST's been if you don't know that it left for a while. Talk about some of the other things that I've been up to over the last, I don't know, couple months, month or two. So we'll start with the ST though. So in early June, I decided to do a stage 2 on the ST. Maybe it wasn't early June sometime. And I did a video on the stage 2, and of course, I will rave about the stage 2 up, down, left, and right, as I'm sure anybody who's done one to their bikes is kind of in that same boat. And by the way, just as a caveat, the weather out today, again, Wisconsinite coming through here, is fucking mint perfect. It's been super hot and humid. Today it's like 72, sunny, perfect. Like I'm in a sweatshirt and it feels good. So anyway, I digress. Bike gets a stage 2 done, new cam, the whole bit, it's all blacked out, you can see that. What happened after that? Well, the whole reason I had originally taken to the ST to the dealer this year was to kind of get its initial service done, and I was getting a check engine code and all this other fun stuff. But I figured, you know, it'll go through its, let's call it 12K mile service for the lack of a better term. It wasn't a 10K because I had that done last year, but basically had to go through the entire bike all over again and diagnose the code, and then they did the stage 2, all those fun things. And get the bike back, make that video. I made another video on like my 12,000 mile review on the bike, and in that video you can clearly see that there's an engine code lighting up on the dash here. And so, long story short on that engine code is what had had my bike in service for the last, let's say, 2 months off and on. So the bike ended up going back to the dealer maybe 4 or 5 times by the time everything was said and done. And so I'll give you the gist of that. So the check engine code, we originally pointed to something with the stage 2, the map, something going wrong with it. I know in my video I talked about electrical failures. There was like an open short code that was coming up on the Harley dash, but on the tuner itself, I'm running a DynoJet PV3, it was coming up as an engine not code sensor. And so I'd get the code, I'd take a picture of it, I'd diagnose a little bit, try to figure out what's going on. I'd go run the bike. It felt like it was running a little off. So I'd text that to the dealer, let them know what was going on. And so they sent trailer after trailer down here to come and pick my bike up, drive it all the way back to Milwaukee. They'd diagnose it for a little bit. Sometimes they'd make a change, sometimes they wouldn't. Again, the bike went back 4 or 5 times. Of those 4 or 5 times, there was maybe only 2 of those visits where they actually physically changed something on the bike. And so what happened from there? Well, again, we kind of pointed to it being the tune, and I mean, they had master level techs working on this thing, and it's gonna be hilarious when I get to the end and tell you what actually was going on. But they had master tech, it kept going back, kept diagnosing it. They adjusted the tune, so I had this big, nice, expensive tune done by a custom shop here in just south of the border in Illinois. And Night Performance, shout out to them, did a great job. And it gets back to Harley-Davidson, and they start making adjustments to this thing, trying to kind of eke out this knock sensor, whatever is flagging in the system. And ultimately, that wasn't the issue at all. Like, the tune that Night Performance had done was perfectly fine. And so they started adjusting all the AFR values, and by the end of it, that tune that had originally been done by Night was completely ruined. Basically, bike was just dumping fuel into the cylinders, super rich, backfiring all over the place, running like absolute garbage. So long story short, gets back from Harley for the final time. They're like, yeah, we just can't figure it out. The engine code won't come back, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to diagnose this thing myself. And like, by no means am I an expert. Like, I can do some things, but I'm not a master level tech or anything. I've never done a stage 2 by myself or timed the motor or anything like that. So I get it back. I read the codes that are coming from the diag on the Harley dash, which again, when you read the codes from the PV3, it's saying engine knock sensor. But the code that comes up that kind of flashes in that direction, there's like a few different things that it can be, and one of them is, again, an open circuit. So the diag on the bike was saying the front and right turn signals were flagging an open circuit. And so I've had this happen before, and I'm running the Moon Pods V2 from Moon's MC, so some of you guys can probably tell me whether that's even viable to run on this bike or not. I didn't have issues with them for 2 years. And got some water in one of the connections at one point with my power washer when I was cleaning the bike. And, you know, that flagged, Harley caught that. I wasn't really sure what was going on. I was just getting an engine code, and this was like a year ago, let's say. But that was quickly fixed. So this whole time, so what did I do? I went into my front turn signals, pulled both front turn signals, and the code immediately went away. Immediately. So 2 months of work, every tech from the bottom to the top at the dealer, and I guess I should flag myself first. None of us were able to immediately figure out that the turn signals were causing an open short or connection somewhere in the electrical. And so whether that's actually at the turn signal itself or if it's somewhere in the harness, you know, I went through some pretty bad torrential downpour in this thing. So I mean, if water got back into the harness again somewhere and there's moisture in it, whatever. Yeah, so bike was out for 2 months. I had originally gotten the stage 2 done in June, thinking like that'll be enough time for me to get it all taken care of before we go to our trip to Gatlinburg, which the trip to Gatlinburg happened in July, middle of July. I think we left the 13th or the 14th for, I don't know, 7 days or something like that. And the bike wasn't ready to be ridden. It still was flagging a code. I felt like it was running a little weird. They had flashed the ECU or ECM with, you know, this new tune that was running like crap because they had, again, adjusted all those AFR values. So I wasn't comfortable with it, so I sent it back to the dealer, and they ended up giving me a Street Glide to ride down there. So I had intended, as I always do on all of my trips, to record a bunch of footage, you know, capture everything that's going on, but I captured a little bit, took some pictures of the Street Glide, so I'll put those through this video as I can. But ultimately, the trip like immediately went from, you know, we're all excited. It was me and my buddy Jackson riding down. First day, his bike broke down, I want to say north of Indianapolis, which is like maybe 4 hours. We had intended to take all back roads. We ended up getting caught in a massive rainstorm on the way down. I mean, like some of the worst torrential downpour riding that I've ever had to ride through. Had no rain sock for the Street Glide. They didn't give me one, so the bike was dying out half the time while we were trying to ride through the rain. That's how bad it was. I mean, we were literally riding through standing water in some spots. But something must have got into his bike and caused some gremlins as well. And his bike died in the middle of our ride down to our first stop in Kentucky. We're gonna stop in Dry Ridge, Kentucky. Recording wasn't my first priority. I know some of these YouTubers, I mean, they're so quick to like pull out the camera. They're always on the camera. You know, my friends aren't used to that. I'm not used to that. So wasn't really the case with us again. And then I'll just quickly give you a story on that. So his bike breaks down, but we limped it to a repair shop. We were able to get it from where it broke down 17 miles to the repair shop. This is on a Sunday, so we have to wait a day. So he's got to get a hotel in the town that we're in. I've got a hotel in Kentucky that I've got to get to that is paid for and there's no refund on. So I continue on because at this point he's saying, I don't even know if I'm going to continue the trip. This is day one. Who the hell knows what's going to go on? So he meets with this repair shop / dealership the next day, and they're not willing to fix his bike. They won't touch a Kawasaki with a 10-foot pole. Basically, they're like, yep, we don't work on anything. you know, that's not a USA make, so either Harley or Indian basically. And yeah, so he's either got the option to like take that bike home, get it fixed by someone who will work on it, or to buy a bike there. And so he decides to buy a Softail Heritage. It's 2018 Softail Heritage. It's used, it's got some miles, but overall in good condition. So the following day, he rides up, he meets with me at the follow-up destination, which is all the way on the east side of Kentucky, in a small town actually in West Virginia, just across the border in Huntington, West Virginia. So I get there at like, I don't know, sometime early afternoon, meet up with my brother because he's gonna follow up with us to go down to Gatlinburg the following day. Him and I go out to eat, we're ringing Jackson, seeing how things are gonna go. He finally makes it out there at like 11 o'clock at night. We have kickstands up the next morning at like 7 o'clock in the morning, so that way we can make the ride to Gatlinburg. That all happens. We make our way to Gatlinburg. Whole ride to Gatlinburg is phenomenal, up until we're about 50 miles out from our cabin. And we're on a road, it's a little twisty, not heavily twisty, it's not tail of the dragon twisty, but there's some pretty decent corners in it. And so we're riding down, and you know, I'm kind of noticing out of my mirrors, you know, Jackson's riding behind me, I can kind of see him taking some turns a little wide. We eventually get to a place where we stop, and I'm like, hey man, you know, again, safety first, ride your own ride, don't feel like you have to go too fast, and oh, by the way, you're on a bike that you've never ridden before up until yesterday, so you don't have the same comfort level that you had on your Kawasaki. It's not even 10 minutes after we stop, we have this conversation, we're kind of hanging out by this riverside, that we get back on the road, and I don't even know how many corners in, but not very far. I am taking the caboose position. My brother's on his Pan America, so I mean, he's ripping. I'm on the Street Glide. Not the greatest to go through that with, rather been on the ST. So I take the back end, and I'm following Jackson at this point. And we're coming up to a left turn. I could tell that he's kind of standing the bike up. He's got too much speed coming into the turn. He panics, he brakes. Bike goes off into the ditch. He maintains for a little bit, like he's still riding the motorcycle as it's going through the grass. And then there's like a drop off in the ditch. So the ditch is maybe, you know, this shallow originally, and he's riding through that, and then it drops off and it crevices even further. And so once he hit that, the bike went out from under him, and he flipped off, bike flipped around, tore a big rock out of the ground, all kinds of fun things. So, long story short on that, Jackson got out of it with a scrape on his elbow. No harm, no foul, like he's good. I quickly stop my bike, get off, go help him, make sure he doesn't have any broken bones, pick his bike up. Bike's still rideable. Great. You know, my brother, he eventually turned back around. He had realized that we were nowhere near him, and he turns back around. He puts his flashers on up the road because, again, we're right in this corner. And yeah, so he's good. Bike is rideable. So we pick it up. There's a little dent in the rim, which is maybe the worst part of the damage. His floorboard was torn off, but like the floorboard mount was still there, so his foot could still sit on said floorboard. And so yeah, we ended up limping that bike the 50 miles back into Gatlinburg. So Gatlinburg trip overall fantastic. A little bit more rain than we like. We did do Tail of the Dragon in the rain, unfortunately. Jackson, of course, spent most of that time trying to kind of handle his motorcycle, but we did have a truck with us, so he was able to get into town with us and go do certain things. So yeah, not my best trip ever, but Gatlinburg, of course, is it's a cool place to be. A lot of great roads, a lot of people though, you know. So for any of you people who are looking to go ride out there, just know that it gets a little crazy. The Wisconsin Dells here is kind of like the Gatlinburg of Wisconsin, but being from the Wisconsin, we call Gatlinburg the Dells of Tennessee, but it's like 10 times the amount of people. So crazy, tons of stoplights. We were in Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, the whole nine. So yeah. Next thing I'll just kind of talk about before I kind of like get off the video here is Harley Homecoming. I know it's been a couple weeks now since that passed. I did go to Harley Homecoming. I was on the ST. The ST was still having issues at that time. Good turnout again this year. I would say the dealers were less exciting than they were at the 120th. The 120th, the dealers really had crazy parties going. This year it was like, hey, go down to Juneau Ave, stick around like the Harley headquarters area, the museum, of course Veterans Park. That was kind of where things really were hitting off. And met a bunch of YouTubers, met Blockhead, 2 Lane Life was up there again. I met them last year as well. Again, I didn't get to meet Adam Sandoval. I know he was in town, and I know that Sandy and John from Cycle Fanatics were there. Didn't really get to meet them, but still was good overall. I guess I'd have to say Blockhead, I was the most excited, and I caught him in the middle of the museum and shook his hand and bear hugged him, and it was like meeting a long lost friend, honestly. So really cool stuff. But yeah, Homecoming was good. I would say to anybody who's not been out here for Homecoming, come out here for a year, do it. Milwaukee and Harley are putting on bigger and bigger shows every year. It's not just kind of like a numbered anniversary thing anymore. In years past it was. I feel like it's more akin to like a Daytona. I mean, it has the feeling, it has the rally feel, and again, you're in the Milwaukee Homecoming, you know, Harley's backyard. So everything's Harley, so if you live that, you breathe that, it's the right place to be for that. So, alright, I'm gonna end this video. Again, ST's back. Did end up getting a new map for it from Fuel Moto. Shout out to those dudes, they hooked me up. It's running great, love it. Front turn signals are still out of it, but that's another issue we'll get to. So last thing I'll mention is that I have some exciting things in the works. I'm not gonna divulge too much here. Some of my closest friends and family already kind of know what I'm doing, but eventually it will make its way to the channel. I'm kind of diving into this a little bit more headfirst than I have in previous years. And yeah, I'm really excited about some of the things that I'm doing, and it's all centered around motorcycles and just life in general, I would say. It's not, I mean, obviously I'm a huge avid rider and all that, but it's more than that. And that's really what I'd like to see come out of it, and to kind of give me that, you know, avenue for creativity, and to like really give back to the motorcycle community, and just be a part of it even more than I already am. So anyways, guys, that's it from me from beautiful Wisconsin. Once again, don't mind the old Kobe in the back or any of the mess that I got back here, as always, but I do appreciate you guys watching. If you like what you saw today, or you like any of my other content, feel free to subscribe. I'd love it. Feel free to leave a comment, and then yeah, more to come on some of the announcements that I just talked about. So take care. Thanks, guys.